Before we get started, I would appreciate if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In this video today, I'm going to discuss the ISO 20022 Global Messaging Standard and what this means for cryptocurrencies. Now, this standard is being adopted by banks, and I'm going to discuss why this is really good bullish news for the utility of certain cryptocurrencies by these financial institutions once the ISO 20022 messaging standard goes live. So let's get started. We've got a lot to go through and a lot to cover. So what is ISO 20022? So the ISO 20022 is a global messaging standard between banks and financial institutions that is being rolled out for banks to migrate over to by 2025. Now, the purpose of the ISO 20022 messaging standard is to help facilitate harmony and interoperability between banks and financial institutions in their payment messages and their payment systems. So this standard would help a lot when it comes to cross-border payments, as you can see on the screen, why you should adopt it now for cross-border payments. And the whole idea is to make the whole process more, there's more harmony between banks. So there's less friction between banks when it comes to dealing with cross-border payments, because each bank is going to be on the same messaging standard, the ISO 20022 messaging standard. So there'll be more harmony and there'll be better interoperability between banks, between financial institutions that have all adopted the ISO 20022 messaging standard when it comes to payments and in their payment systems. So it's starting in November 2022. It is an open global standard for financial information. It provides consistent, rich, and structured data that can be used for every kind of financial business transaction. Here we have the JPMorgan Bank, and they're talking about the 4 steps to mastering the new ISO 20022 standard for cross-border payments. So as you can see, this standard is going to be a big thing when it comes to cross-border payments. And the benefits of ISO 20022 is richer data, which is ripe for analysis, greater interoperability between different payment systems. This is very important here, that it provides interoperability between different payment systems. We're going to discuss this in this video, and interfaces. So once banks adopt this standard, this messaging standard, which is going to be the global standard by 2025, then there will be greater interoperability with banks between different payment systems and interfaces, thanks to a common language. Lowered costs, so it makes payments cross-border cheaper, and enhanced reconciliation, faster payment speeds by removing holdups, bottlenecks, and ambiguity when sending international payments. So as you can see, the ISO 20022 messaging standard is an enhancement and an improvement from the standard that they're using today, which is the I think it's called FinMT. That's the standard that they're using today. Now, the ISO 20022, known as MX, is a better standard for banks worldwide. So when does JPMorgan plan to go live with the ISO 20022 messaging standard? Here at JPMorgan, we will be live on day 1. We want to complete the transition seamlessly, giving our clients the best possible support and experience through this period. Okay, so JPMorgan plans to go live in day 1. And what do they tell other banks? Our advice in a nutshell: don't wait until 2025. They're telling everybody else we're going live straight away, and don't bother wait. What's the point of waiting until 2025? Get on the new system ASAP. The changes are coming fast. Make sure your payments ecosystem can accept ISO 20022 in time in order to make the most of this game-changing piece of global payment infrastructure. So it's game changing, and we're going to discuss more in this video as to why this ISO 20022 messaging standard is actually game changing. So here is a document by Swift, and as you can see, the date that this document was released is September 2016. And what does this document say? Distributed ledgers, smart contracts, business standards, and ISO 20022. Now, in 2016, 5 years ago, actually 6 years ago, they were already talking about ISO 20022, this standard in relation to distributed ledgers. If you don't know what distributed ledger technology is, that's basically technology that uses cryptocurrency. They're distributed ledgers, smart contracts, again, cryptocurrency technology, cryptocurrency-based technology, business standards, and ISO 20022. So, distributed ledger technology and smart contracts promise to transform automation in the financial industry and are generating huge interest among financial institutions. Yes, it is. So if we go down to this there's a lot of reading. I'm not going to go through this document, but if we just actually look at some parts of this document and see what they're saying, what are they talking about here? Interoperability and reuse, ISO 20022 and DLT. They're talking about interoperability with ISO 20022, that messaging standard, and distributed ledger technology. Remember on the JPMorgan website, what did they say? It enables greater interoperability between different payment systems. Distributed ledger technology is a type of payment system, and this standard, which banks are going to be transitioning over to between November 2022 to 2025, is going to enable interoperability between different payment systems and interfaces. I'm connecting the dots for you. This document was in 2016, where Swift is talking about the ISO 20022 being interoperable with distributed ledger technology. Interoperability with messaging. This is where one of the key benefits of reusing ISO 20022 definitions for the DLT implementation becomes apparent. And then they're going to talk about a proof of concept that they were using the ISO 20022 messaging with DLT technology. Now, if you just go to the conclusion, for the reasons mentioned in this introduction to this paper, full-scale standardization of DLT use cases is probably premature. So they're saying full-scale uses of DLT is premature. This was in 2016. A lot has happened from 2016 to 2022 in the distributed ledger technology space. However, even with a formal methodology, there is clear value today in reusing reference data standards and business context from messaging standards, most obviously ISO 20022, which has the widest industry coverage and an adaptable technical architecture. So what are the benefits of using ISO 20022 is twofold. One of them is facilitating interoperability amongst DLT, distributed ledger implementations, and with existing financial industry infrastructure, including electronic messaging. You get what I'm saying here? This is in 2016. They're already talking about ISO 20022 messaging standard 6 years ago being interoperable with DLT implementations, which is distributed ledger technology, and they want this messaging standard to be interoperable with this new technology, distributed ledger. Why? What is the ISO 20022 going to be used for? It's going to be used for cross-border payments, and it's going to be interoperable with distributed ledger technology, which is the cryptocurrencies. Not every cryptocurrency, we're going to go through it in this video, which cryptocurrencies and which payment systems in the cryptocurrency space that are DLT-based, that's going to be interoperable with ISO or compatible with ISO. And this was in 2016. They're already talking about the benefits of ISO being interoperable with distributed ledger technology. So, which payment systems, RTGS, real-time gross settlement payment systems, are going live with ISO 20022, and when are they going live? So look at this chart here. You see Swift. Swift is a company that deals with sending messages between banks during cross-border payments. And when are they going live? Swift, they plan to go live in November 2022, just a couple of months or a few months away. All financial institutions processing Swift MT, which is the FinMT, the current messaging standard, Category 1, 2 and 9 must process ISO 20022 by November 2022. Who else is going live in November 2022? Which other payment systems? Real-time gross settlement systems, RTGS systems for short, is in the Eurozone. We have Target 2 or T2. Big Bang all Euro payments going through Target 2 will only be in ISO 20022 format from November 2022. Then we have in England CHAPS, and they plan to go live by 2023 using the ISO 20022 messaging standard. And in America we have Fedwire, and the latest news is they're going to go live with ISO 20022 messaging standard in November 2025. So let's just look at the actual website so you can actually see what I'm saying, that I'm not just making this up. So here we have the SWIFT website, ISO 20022 adoption program. The ISO 20022 program will change the way you send cross-border payments and reporting instructions. When are they going live? ISO 20022 go live for cross-border payments and reporting and coexistence starting from November. November when? They're talking about November 2022. Here it is, November 22 for general availability, starting from August 22 on opt-in basis. So you can opt in August 22, but in November 22 for general availability. SWIFT is going to go live with ISO 20022 adoption. And we've already discussed in 2016, SWIFT was already talking about the ISO 20022 standard being interoperable with DLT implementations. And what is ISO going to be used for? Cross-border payments. What can distributed ledger technology be used for? To improve and enhance cross-border payments. In 2016, 6 years ago, they're already laying this all out, saying that it's going to be interoperable with DLT-based systems. And now SWIFT is going live in November 2022. You see, when you connect the dots together, you're going to understand why this is really bullish news for the utility of certain cryptocurrencies by financial institutions. Now here we have the ECB, the European Central Bank, full implementation of ISO 20022. When are they going to full implement ISO 20022? They talk about it in this document somewhere. Let's scroll down. From European market perspective, the market is migrating to ISO 20022 fully fledged, which allows European banks to make full use of ISO 20022 enhanced elements from November 2022. So they plan to go live in November 2022. The Target 2, that RTGS system, which stands for Real-Time Gross Settlement Systems, which is a system that is used for real-time payments. Now, the whole industry has embarked on an ISO 20022 migration journey, and implementations have commenced. The aim is to fully migrate to ISO 20022 by November 2025. However, the European Central Bank is planning on going live this year, November 2022, with SWIFT. And now we have the Bank of England, a new messaging standard for UK payments, ISO 20022. When do they plan to go live? They talk about the benefits of ISO 2022. Flexibility, harmonization between payments. We've already covered these benefits. Now, when are they going live? When is CHAPS going live? CHAPS enhanced ISO 20022 messaging standard is going live April 2023. The migration of the live CHAPS service to ISO 20022 will occur April 2023. There you have it. Now we have Federal Reserve, and this is for Fedwire. Federal Reserve delays ISO 20022 cutover by 2 years. So I think they were supposed to go live in 2023, but they've now delayed it until 2025. The Federal Reserve is to delay the implementation of the new ISO 20022 payment messaging format by 2 years to 2025. The Fed had previously set a deadline in November 2023, but now they've delayed it to 2025. Whether this article is actually true that they're going to go live in 2025 and not 2023 is another story, because there are going to be many banks and many payment systems that are going to go live before them. Even JPMorgan Bank, what did they say? They're going to go live on day one. So is the Federal Reserve really going to wait until 2025 when all the other banks are transitioning over really early? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. It doesn't matter. But the plan is by 2025, all banks worldwide are going to transition over to ISO 20022. Now, so far you understand what ISO 20022 does, that it's going to be interoperable with DLT-based systems, which is distributed ledger technology-based systems, and you see the dates when certain payment systems, RTGS payment systems like the Target 2, CHAPS, Fedwire, Swift, when are they going live with ISO 20022? Now, which cryptos are ISO 20022 compliant or compatible? So which cryptos are compatible with the ISO 20022 standard? We have Ripple, Stellar, XDC network, Algorand, and then on this list they have Hedera. I'm not actually sure. I know IOTA is one of them as well. That's compliant or compatible with the standard. We have Hedera as well, and Quant. I'm not sure if these two are officially compliant or whether they are going to be in the future. But here we have a list of cryptocurrencies, all solid projects that are compatible with the ISO 20022 standard. Now in this video, I'm not going to focus on every single one of these crypto assets. I'm only going to focus on the triple X, and that's XRP, XLM, and XDC. They're going to be my main focus in this video when it comes to the ISO 20022 standard in relation to these cryptocurrencies. So XRP, XDC, and XLM. Now, what you may be wondering, okay, fine, you understand that ISO 20022 is going to be the global standard, and you understand that it can interface and be interoperable with distributed ledger technology like Ripple, XDC network, Stellar. However, what you may be wondering is, how are these traditional banking institutions going to benefit from DLT-based payment systems that are ISO 20022 compatible? So why would the banks, or how would the banks be, why would the banks be interested in using distributed ledger technology in cross-border payments, and how would they benefit from it? And this is where we go to this diagram in this video. Now, I made a whole YouTube video off of this diagram here, so I do recommend you to go through my videos and watch it, because I really delve into how this all works. But in this video, I'm just going to quickly run through the benefits that ISO 20022 will have by being interoperable with DLT-based payment systems like XRP, XDC, XLM, and how would it benefit banks and so on. So here we have this diagram. So usually when it comes to cross-border payments between Bank A and Bank B, when they're sending money over, there is, how they do it today, there's a lot of correspondent banks in the middle, and it requires each bank to have accounts with each other, and it requires liquidity to be held up by each banks, and this is known as nostro vostro accounts, and the whole process takes time, is slow, there's delays, you have to have pre-funding, and there's lots of friction, there's no harmonization, and so on. Now, with distributed ledger technology, what distributed ledger technology enables between banks is a direct corridor between one bank to another bank, and they use a bridging asset to facilitate the cross-border payment instantaneously. So I'm going to give you an example. In this example, I'm going to use XRP, but as you can see, XLM can be used or XDC can be used, as they are all ISO 20022 compliant. So imagine we have a bank, and the bank, they're using the ISO 20022 messaging system, both banks. So that enables the bank to be interoperable and interface with different payment systems. For example, the Ripple X RTGS system, which uses Ripple. So banks can interface with Ripple X that uses the Ripple X that uses XRP, and they can use that RTGS system in cross-border payments. So now, what are they doing? They're using a distributed ledger technology to facilitate a cross-border payment, and the currency for that ledger in the case of the XRP blockchain will be XRP. So how would it work? So a bank has a CBDC, for example, or they have a fiat currency, and what they want to do is transfer $100 from one bank to another. So they would have that $100, they would interface with the distributed ledger technology. That $100 would be converted into the native token on that ledger. Whether if it's the XRP ledger, it will be XRP, it will be converted to. If it's XLM Stellar, it will be XLM, it will be converted to. If it's the Zinfin network, it will be XDC. So $100 will be converted into XRP, and then it will be sent over to where it's supposed to go, and then it will be reconverted, re-exchanged into the local currency. And what does this enable? It enables instantaneous settlement. So you can have settlement done in 1 to 2 seconds or a few seconds. So it's very fast, it's super cheap, and there's no friction as a result of using distributed ledger technology for cross-border payments. There's no friction in between, and there's no pre-funding of Nostro-Vostro accounts. So watch my video, and it talks about Nostro-Vostro accounts, how banks have to use correspondent banking, and they have to have pre-funded accounts along the way in order to facilitate settlement. Now with this system using distributed ledger technology, they can skip this, and there's no need for capital being tied up because they don't need Nostro-Vostro accounts, and they can have on-demand sort of liquidity as a result of leveraging DLT-based technology. So easily open payment corridors into new markets. They can open up payment corridors into different markets and facilitate direct payment, cross-border payments that's settled instantaneously, and there's liquidity on demand when they're using the XRP-based system, and which asset benefits the native asset of that ledger. So if they're using XRP ledger, then the XRP token would benefit because it's that token that would have to absorb the value that's being sent across it and facilitate its transition from one end to another end whilst absorbing that value before it's exchanged into the currency it's going to be exchanged for. And XLM can do the same thing, and XDC can do the same thing. This is why banks are going to be using, very likely, as they were discussing in 2016, making sure ISO 20022 is compatible with DLT-based systems for cross-border payments. This is why banks are going to be using these systems, and they're going to be able to use these systems, distributed ledger technology, once they go live with ISO, because of the benefits. It's fast settlement, instantaneous, cheap, no friction. Look at the benefits, and this is what they want. They want something that's going to make banking much easier for them and much smoother for them. And all their payment systems are going live with ISO 20022. CHAPS, FedWire, FedNow, Target2, Swift, they're all going live with ISO 20022. And all these RTGS systems are going to be interoperable with distributed ledger technology, like with RippleX, for example. And they're going to be interoperable with XLM and XDC, and they can use and leverage these blockchains for instantaneous settlement and cross-border payments. It's going to be a game changer for them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so as to not miss my next video. Take care and goodbye.